Hi guys, happy Sunday and welcome back. So in this video, I am going to do a response to a comment that was left on one of my posts on Facebook. This guy came on there and he left a link. And the link was to a YouTube video where it talks about why intelligent women stay single longer. And so just off the title of the video, I'm like, it's kind of like a compliment. You think about it. Intelligent women stay single longer, almost implying like we should stay single longer, right? And then I clicked on the video and I watched a little bit of it. I didn't watch the entire video, and I saw there was this white man explaining, I guess from his perspective, because everyone has their own perspective, right? And rationale, but from his perspective, he's talking about intelligence and the way intelligence factors into a woman's dating pool, right? Based on her mate selection. And I'm like his premise is that basically like the more intelligent a woman is, the smaller her dating pool is, because it kind of weeds out, it disqualifies. I think his number, he said, was like 90 some percent. It was a high percentage of men are basically become disqualified based on her level of intelligence. And we know how white people measure intelligence, right? They measure it by oftentimes educational level, how many degrees a person has, IQ, which is really factored by a person's verbal ability, and it's like IQ testing, right? So I'm like, I don't really agree with that. And this is not the first time like this discussion has come up, because I get asked that sometimes, like, why are you single? Just curious, like, why are you single, right? Kind of implying like I should not be single. And some will even go to say like, oh, you're so beautiful with all of your intelligence, like, why are you on this dating site? Why are you here? And I'm like, I'm here to meet people just like anyone else. I mean, you can meet people in person, which I do, but you can also meet people in a dating site where you're able to put in certain specifications, criteria that you're looking for in a person, and you'll get matched based on that. So I think it's a bit convenient, shall I say. But I just find that question to be kind of interesting, but also ignorant too, right? Because it's almost kind of assuming that I've been single all my life, right? And some guys are a bit more savvy to ask a better question, which is, let's say, how long you've been single, or when was your last relationship, right? But even that question, like, oh, how long you've been single, for me, it's going on 5 years. Well, I just made the 4-year mark. December 2021. Made 4 years since I've been single. And single is basically, in my perspective, doesn't mean that I'm not going on dates, right? Doesn't mean that I'm not expressing interest in a guy or vice versa and getting to know a guy. It doesn't mean that. For me, it's just like not dating someone consistently, right? Seriously, in terms of long-term relationship. But I have to laugh at that question, because it's just like, when you think about how long I've been an adult. I've been an adult for 20 years, right? 20 years I've been an adult, since the age of 18. I am 38 years old. Of those 20 years, I have been with 3 guys long term over the span of 10 years. So we're talking about at least, I would say, a little bit over half of my adult life, I have been in serious long-term relationship, right? Over three. And it breaks down like this. And I think it's important, right, to do the breakdown, because some people, like, they just don't get it. It's just like, yo, I've been, and when I say when I've been with these guys, right, 3 guys, these are long-term relationships that all 3 total a little over 10 years. That's a long fucking time. Like, that's over half of my adult life that I have been with, in a long-term relationship. And not just long term, but these three guys, like I lived with them. We lived together. We woke up together every single morning. Okay? So let's go back to when I graduated high school, because this is where it all began. I graduated high school back in 2002, 18 years old. I went straight into college. I went to a university in my hometown, and I was living on campus. I was living in the dorms. That same year I started, that very same year that I started my undergrad degree at that university, I met this guy and we fell in love. I was 18 years old, so I was with this guy for 2 years, right? My very first long-term relationship, and we lived together. So I was living in the dorm, but then like he wanted me to move in with him. He got an apartment. I ended up moving in with him. We were together for 2 years. It didn't work out because he was kind of a little bit overprotective, right? I like guys who are protective, but overprotective. Like, I was young. Think about it. I'm 18 years old. I'm with him from the age of 18 to 20 years old. From 2002 to 2004, we were together. And of course I had female friends, and those female friends just so happened to be single. And what do single girls do? They like to go out. And so they would invite me out, and like he would have an issue with that. And in his mind, I was cheating on him. In his mind, right? Anytime I left the house without him, with my female colleagues, friends, I was cheating on him, right? And I just got like annoyed by that. He became like less attractive. But I must say, like, we did everything together, right? At that time, I was like a church girl, super religious. So we would go to Sunday church. We would go to Bible study. Me and him spent, like, we lived together. We spent a lot of time together. We did things together. This was in Florida, so we traveled up and down Florida, you know, did all the touristy things in Orlando. I met his family. His family, like, would host irregular events, right? Like, at their place and cookouts and stuff. I went to all the birthday parties. He has a twin brother. They have his twin brother and his wife, you know, had children. I would celebrate their children birthday parties. Just like, and not only that, he had like other siblings too, right? Who also had children. And the same thing. It's just like I was really immersed like in his family. He spent time with me and my family. So we really got to know each other. He actually wanted to marry me, right? But I'm like, yo, I'm 18 to 20. That's young. That's young to get married. And I think he was, I don't know, 4 or 6 years older than I was, right? And I was like, I mean, I was serious. I took the relationship seriously, right? I cared about him. I liked him. I just didn't like the overbearingness that I felt in that relationship. And so we ended up breaking up. And that's when I moved to Tallahassee. So my last 2 years I completed at Florida State University. And that's where I got my degree from. And he helped me move up there. I didn't ask him. He offered to help me. This is after me and him had broken up, right? He helped me move. And let me say this, because I think this story is hilarious. So what led to the breakup? This is what did it, right? I was already spending like a good amount of time with my friends. I had a really close female friend. We all went to the same school, right? It was just like a trio. It was like me. Actually, it was like 4 of us that hung together. We all were like prayer partners and stuff. And so I would like spend time at her place, and we would pray and go to church. And he didn't like that. I guess she was taking me away from him, right? And I was spending all this time with her. And so one day, me, her, and another friend of ours, we went out. We had a good time too, right? And I decided not to come home that night. I guess that was a bad decision, or maybe it was a great decision, right? I decided not to come home. I went to her place because it was late. After we went out, I went back to her place, spend the night. And you know this motherfucker, when I got back to my place, like we were living together in an apartment, right? He had the blinds, and they were like kind of like vertical blinds. He had opened them and had packed up all my things and put them in front of the window, right? Big ass window facing the parking lot, so that when me and my friends pulled up, all my shit was just like exposed. Like you can see it through the window. And they're like, girl, he packed your shit. He trying to put you out. I was just like, listen, I'm over his ass anyway. So I ended up moving out. I moved in to stay with my friend at the time. And then from there, you know, I made a decision to move to Tallahassee to complete my final 2 years. It's like, why not? Because my other friend, female friend, had decided that she wanted to do her schooling up there. So I was just like, shit, let's go, right? I'm very spontaneous like that. So I ended up moving to Tallahassee. So, but that relationship was from 2002 to 2004, from 18 to 20 years old, right? And then I took like a little 5-year hiatus. And it's interesting because it seems like there are 2 5-year hiatuses, right? Given that this December 2022, it'll be 5 years. So that's what accounts for the other 5 years that I've been somewhat single, I guess you can say. So after that first one that lasted 2 years, I met a guy. This is when I came back from Tallahassee and I was doing my master's degree in my hometown. I met a guy and we became really good friends. And we ended up dating from 2009 to 2014. So I was 25 years old. From age 25 to age 30, I dated this guy. And we started out as friends. So we actually met in 2006. Now, I must say, when I was up in Tallahassee, of course I dated guys. But when I'm just only accounting for like the 3 long-term relationships, right? The first one being 2 years when I started college, and then the second being this one. This was 5 years. And after we had like established a friendship, when we met in 2006, we were just so close. We ended up moving in together. It became roommates. 2009, it's just like we went ahead and solidified the deal, right? But the interesting thing about that relationship, and a lot of people are like wowed by that, right? I'm pretty open and transparent. A lot of people are wild and they cannot believe that me and this guy who I dated for that 5-year span, we only had sex one time. And of course, I was faithful to him. We were faithful to each other. And because it really wasn't about the sex. It was about the bond. Like that, like we became brother and sister, and we're still best friends. Like that is still my best friend, right? Even though like had a period of time recently where I was just like I put his ass in time out, but we're still really, really good friends. And so we just didn't have sex. Like we had sex once. And we did a lot of fun things together, like in Florida. We ended up moving to Atlanta, Georgia together twice. The first time was a crapshoot. The second time we moved there, it was 2011. And yeah, I did the whole Atlanta thing. Atlanta was interesting because I got to meet a lot of like black celebrities. A lot of, black celebrities live in Atlanta, and, they're trying to get their coins out there. Of course, Tyler Perry Studios is out there. I actually met Tyler Perry and worked at his studios on several different projects. So that was cool. Like get a chance of being able to like experience like the whole black Hollywood scene and what that is like. Because that was my first time like being exposed in that area to like filmmaking and just what it's like working on set, right? And behind the scenes, like that was really exciting. I worked on several different film projects. I was part of Las Vegas movie with Morgan Freeman. I think Robert De Niro was in that. Did an actual scene with them, so that was cool. You can actually see me in the scene. I worked on Second Generation Wayans, which was a TV show. I worked on Vampire Diaries. I worked on a lot of different things out there in Atlanta. Lived there for 3 years, from 2011 to 2014. And then I got like at the point like I was just like 2014. That's when I started writing. That's when I stepped into the world of BDSM. I just felt like my life was, I don't know, it was kind of getting dull. Not in terms of like what I was doing in terms of like work wise and working in film and TV productions, but more so like my personal life. Because like I said, my best friend who I was dating, he was more asexual, and it was just awkward. He's more like a beta male. Didn't initiate sex. That one time we had sex, I initiated it. I mean, he's cool. Don't get me wrong. He's a nice guy, really cool guy, but sex is important, Sex isn't. So yeah, I just had this craving to live out my fantasy, and one of my fantasies has always been bondage and being dominated, right? So I began to explore the world of BDSM, and that's where the story Dying to Submit comes in, where I actually met my a BDSM mentor, very first, right? Very first master mentor. We met back in 2014. You gotta read the story, okay? I'm not gonna talk about that here. I talked about that before. But you gotta go and read the story. That was like really interesting how that played out, yo. I still reminisce on that. It's just like, okay, so that was 2014. And then like I said, I just wanted more. I knew that, okay, what I was doing in Atlanta, it was cool. But I knew I always wanted to pursue something higher, like especially with higher education. And so I ended up leaving Atlanta. I did consult with my partner at the time, right? I'm just like, listen, you want to come, to Atlanta, not to Atlanta, to New York. Like, let's go to New York, right? More opportunities. And he was considering it, but he wasn't as motivated like as I was, right? So he didn't secure a job in New York, even though he did come with me. He interviewed at a few places, but he just really wasn't pulled in that direction as I was. And so I ended up leaving him behind. This is a 5-year relationship, guy, even though we had been best friends. Like, we're still best friends. We met in 2006. So from 2006 up until now, we're talking about 2022. That's what, 16 years we've been best friends. We dated for those 5 years from 2009 to 2014. I left him behind. I'm just like, I want more. And then if you're not on that track, right? So I came to New York, moved to New York 2014. And that was the summer of 2014. And it wasn't too long before I ended up meeting. And by the way, when I flew from Atlanta to New York in 2014, that was my very first time on an airplane, y'all. I was like, I cried. I remember lifting off the ground. I cried, I think, for a number of reasons. I cried because I was like, wow, it was my first time on a plane. And this shit was kind of scary. And then secondly, I think really the first and foremost reason was because, like, I was leaving behind my best friend. Like, yeah, it was, because I'm saying, like, we've been through a lot together. Like, I went through the struggle phase with him, and we just did a lot of things together. Even though we didn't have sex really that much, but we just did everything together. It's like, that was like my right hand man. Like, that was just like, we were inseparable. Everybody knew us. So they saw him, they saw me, and vice versa. Like, we spent a lot of time together. We lived together. Can I say we lived together, right? For 5 years. Then I left Atlanta, moved to New York that same year, right? So the fall of that same year, I ended up meeting my most recent ex. So we're moving along into the third long-term relationship, right? I said I was in 3. The first was the freshman college relationship. That was 2 years from age 18 to 20. The second one was my buddy, my best friend of 5 years that I dated. We lived together, right? But we've been best friends since like 16 years now. And then the third is my ex. And that relationship lasted from 2014 to 2017. It was 3 years. Age 31, because I had just turned 31. So I was with the second guy from age 25 to age 30. That 5-year relationship. And then my third long-term relationship, I was with my ex, I would say the most recent ex, right? But it's really not that recent. You think about it, but by comparison, that's my last relationship. I was with him from 2014 to 2017, right? We met like, I remember it was around like Halloween of 2014, and then like we decided to just seal the deal. I was happy to. December 2017. So I was 31. So age 31 to 34, I was with him. I'm 38. So that relationship, oh, that shit was fucking tumultuous. It was like, I mean, you know how people talk about bad about like their ex, right? But it's like just as bad as it was just as good as it was too, right? So I can't like push it under the bus or push him under the bus because we had some really good times. Otherwise, we wouldn't have dated for 3 years. And like I said, we lived together, right? Not just dating, but we shared space. We kind of fell in love at first sight. Kind of moved in like the first day we met, like moved in, like shit went real fast. I had my own place. I was living in Manhattan. He had a place in the Bronx. But how it worked was that, okay, we spent so much time together, like his place, it was just like, okay, we had to come to a decision, like, okay, how are we going to do this? Because I'm spending a lot of time at your place. Granted, his place was really comfy and inviting and warm and homey, and you know, I almost felt like a woman lived there, but it's just the way he decorated it. He was Jamaican, from Brooklyn. And so yeah, it was just like I'm paying rent at a space in Manhattan, yet I'm always over here, you know. And I actually wanted to be in my space, like I was paying where I was paying rent at, but he was, you know, wanted me to stay, and I wanted to stay with him, so I ended up giving up my space in Manhattan and moved in to stay with him. I'm not about to go into that shit because that shit was like turned the hell up in that relationship, which I kind of talked about before. I ended up wanting to get away from it. And this was January 2016. I'm like, I got to get up out this shit. I felt like it was like a threat to my sense of self, my integrity as a woman. And so I made like a decision. And it was something I put a lot of thought into, right? To just like up and leave and bounce. And I did. I left spontaneously. He didn't know. He was at work. I kind of planned it where he was at work. And I ended up packing my shit. And I just like booked a flight to LA. And like, honestly, the funny thing about it is like, he kind of knew that I had plans to just do something different because I had talked about how I wanted to pursue my PhD. Which, funny enough, I actually was considering moving to London, to the UK. I had went to the graduate school fairs. They would host like an annual graduate school fair or international graduate school fairs that would come to New York. And that's basically where schools from all over around the world, graduate school programs actually, would come and advertise, you know, their programs. And I had went to a few, and I was really interested in a few schools in London. And how their PhD programs in psychology work is that they didn't require clinical hours necessarily. It's just a research project, and that's it. It was 3 years long. So it was less extensive than the PhD program that I graduated from in California, but I actually wanted to do that. I kind of want to do that, not just obviously to do research and pursue my PhD, but also just why London? I wanted to get away. It's just like, I wanted to get away. And so he didn't like that. He was like, if you, wherever you're going in the world, I'm coming with you, right? And so even London. And then I decided against London. I decided, because it was like London or California. I decided California. Granted, I had never left the U.S., so I ended up moving to California spontaneously. I will never forget this. I planned it. It wasn't that spontaneous, but it was spontaneous in the sense I had never visited California ever before. And I went there just trying to get away from his ass. He came like after me. He was calling me like, oh, where you at? Da 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 da. We ended up I got a place in Hollywood, California, because that's where I landed. Well, technically I landed at Burbank Airport, but the bus driver was like, you know, we're going to Hollywood. There are places you can stay there. It was weird. I'm not even going to get into that. It was weird. Okay, how that happened. Yeah, so we ended up in Hollywood, middle of the fucking night. I ended up renting a room. And then my ex was like, you know, oh, you can't be out there like that. He wanted to come. I was like, I'm coming. Now, at the time, he was working still in New York. But he ended up taking off of work, flew out to LA like the next week or something, right? I had got me an apartment in my name. Then he flew back. He had to handle some business, had to close some loose ends. He ended up putting in a 2 weeks notice at his job. Packed up all his shit. Came with me out there to LA, right? And then he wanted his name on the lease. And then he wanted to pay all the bills. And that's another thing. So these three guys, right? These three long-term relationships I'm talking about that amounted to a 10-year span of time. They all like basically took care of me like financially. I didn't pay any bills. Not that I couldn't or I didn't offer, but they wanted to take on that role. So, I'm not even gonna front. It is weird when I come across men like on the dating scene, right? And they have this idea of 50-50. Like I'm supposed to contribute to the bills. Not that I can't. This is a thing where men get it misinterpreted because they assume like, oh, well, what are you bringing to the table? What can you do? You're not paying towards the bills. I can, but I wouldn't say spoiled. I just been treated, I would say, how a woman should be treated, right? No, they didn't expect me to pay. I did not pay. I did not contribute towards the bills necessarily, though I did other things. So we went on vacation. Guess who paid? I did, and I had a lot of money. I could do it. And I wanted to do it. This is my give back to them. Like a guy is paying all the bills. He paying the rent. He paying the light bill, cable bill, whatever, you know, gas and all of that in the car. Just like, yeah, you know, we want to go do fun things. I don't mind. Getting food, you know, eating out at restaurants, like I didn't mind. So that's where the woman comes in. But yeah, guys just have it like they have it wrong. They want you to be their roommate, and I'm like, the guys I dated, I wasn't their roommate, right? Like they took care of me, they paid the bills. That's how the shit went down. But yeah, so like, you know, my ex, like he moved out to LA with me and then took over the lease, was paying everything. We had fun. We did, you know, that relationship though, that relationship is a whole book by itself. All right, I'm not about to get into that. So that was a 3-year span, and we end up we had to part ways, right? Just like it was too much. It was draining. So December 2017 is when like officially, right? Officially in the sense that it was a drag because I had told him this, I want you to get out, just leave, just go. And then he did. He was running a hotel, but he still couldn't get away from me. He wanted me to come see him at the hotel. Then he ended up getting a condo around the corner from where we were staying in Hollywood. Invited me to come over there. He just couldn't get enough of me. He kept like popping up at my place, trying to like make amends, but you know when you're over something, you just over it. You're just like, just over that shit, right? And that's not good. I know they say, okay, well, black love, you should try to work things out, right? You should try to tough it out. You should try to, I don't know, get therapy, counseling, just talk it out, work it out. But hell nah. Sometimes you're just over it. It's just like you can't make love reappear if it's gone. you turn the hell off, right? And there was some things that transpired in that relationship. I'm not going to get into that, you know. But he was like, he's still a sweet guy in my eyes, right? But I just, So I was happy. I felt so relieved when it was finally done. And we were not living together, and we were not seeing each other, right? I felt so fucking relieved, like a whole burden had got lifted off my shoulders, and it was just like, I'm single. And I was in my PhD program at the time, right? I was like 2 years in. So this is December 2017. I started the program in the fall of 2016, right? So like I was in my second year when this happened, and like my colleagues were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm just like, "Sorry for what?" Like no, this is what needed to happen. So sometimes people are just like, they miss you, right? They're totally misaligned to what you're going through or whatever, the situation at hand. But I'm just like, nah, I'm good. This is what I needed. And I noticed like I started to look better. Like I haven't looked this good in years. I was stressed, so stressed in that relationship. My skin was just looking terrible. You look at my pictures from that period, from 2014 to 2017. It's just, I look different. But yeah, and so that was the last guy. And so this December would make 5 years. So you think about it, between my first and my second long-term relationship, it was like a 5 years hiatus, right? And then you think about my last relationship, given that I went into, between my second and third, I just kind of, it wasn't much time. It was like several months. It was like, what, summer of 2014 is when I left Atlanta and broke up with my ex, my second ex, right? But it was just like months. Think of summer to October. It was just months in between that. I got into the third long-term relationship that lasted 3 years. And then now it's been 5 years. So that's what accounts for that 10-year of being single. I say single like this because even though I wasn't living with a guy or dating a guy, you know, during those periods of time, I mean, I still dated, right? So I look at, since the last relationship that ended December 2017, I've been on hella fucking dates, yo. Almost too many, really. Talk to guys. I made friends with guys. But it's just like, not really in a rush. You know, it's just like you're not really in a rush to be in love, so to speak, right? You have a desire to explore, to connect with another person, but the whole being in love thing is kind of questionable. When I look back at the 5-year span from my first relationship to my second one, we're talking about, because the first one was from 18 to 20, right? So we're talking about between age 20 years old to 25, like I was relatively single, but I was still dating. Those were the years when I was finishing up my bachelor's degree, and then I had entered a master's program. But even like during that period of time when I was like finishing my bachelor's at Florida State, yeah, I dated. You know, I was talking to this doctor of pharmacy. Well, he was going to school for his doctor of pharmacy. It's an African guy. We had lots of fucking fun together. fun, shall I say. So like I have my moments, yeah. Like I've dated, when I was up there, I dated a guy from Miami. He took me down to Miami. Interesting enough, his father was a psychologist. His father owned this beautiful home in Miami, really nice. Me and this guy dated. It was just like, I wouldn't say, I don't count those because it wasn't like long term, right? Long term, I would say, is at least a year, over a year. Those were like short. Even though we had known each other, we would still spend time together. It wasn't like we were living together, so I don't really count those. as long-term or substantial relationships. But that was still cool though, that experience. Like, I had many experiences, with guys just doing fun things, traveling. So looking at my single life, I've accomplished a lot just being single, and I feel like I accomplished more. And I think this goes not just for myself, but for also like women. Sometimes relationships can slow you down, okay? When you're like really entangled in that shit. I feel like, yes, it's good to connect with somebody, right? That you relate to, not in love and shit like that. But like, when you're talking about goal oriented or career oriented women like myself, yeah, relationships can be a stalemate. It can slow you down. It can throw you off course, and so, because guys, this is the thing, right? Guys say they want an intelligent woman. Oh, I want an educated woman, a woman that got a lot going for herself. But they see that attention that could be devoted to them is being devoted to something else, right? And not only is it being devoted, but you're making progress. You're succeeding. You're rising up the socioeconomic ladder. It does affect the dynamic in your relationship, right? I saw it in my last relationship with a guy I dated for 3 years, from 2014 to 2017. Like, I saw the change. How, I'm succeeding in my program, right? And he see that I'm doing well, and yeah, it makes it feel a certain kind of way. Unless you're rising too, which he was working, he was making good money, shall I say. But sometimes men can feel very insecure, especially men who want to be alpha, want to pay all the bills. It does kind of shift things when they see it, like, damn, okay, And can you imagine if I stayed with him now with the salary that I'm making now? Because, of course, when I was in school, I wasn't making shit, right? But, now that I'm done with school and, I have an income, decent income, like, could you imagine? So yes, it does require that a man is very secure, is very confident in himself, has a degree of success that matches mine or greater. You have to, because you are going to feel a certain kind of way, especially when it comes to just going out on a date. Choice of date, right? Where are we going to go? Choice of restaurants, especially when it comes to my taste, These guys their budget only can afford but so much, right? And then they choose sometimes to just cook, and that's good too. If you know how to cook, okay, cook. That's cool. But I think, aside from the wallet comparison, it's just their own perspective, right? Their own ideology about what it means for a woman to be successful and have a PhD, right? Be a doctor or whatever. It's a status thing, and they feel a certain kind of way. They feel inferior. They feel threatened. I even made a joke how it's weird how men, when they find out I have a PhD, they start to even use different vernacular, trying to use big words and shit. It's like, you don't just be yourself. And I must say this on the lines of mate selection and intelligent women. It's funny that when I look at those 3 long-term relationships, right? None of those guys. Let me think. Let me make sure I think correctly. Yeah, none of those guys had a degree. None of them had degrees. Not even a bachelor's degree. Not even an associate's degree, okay? This is not about that, right? So sometimes guys, they think it is, though. They think it's about, oh, you gotta have a degree that matches mine. No, you don't. But they were working men. You gotta, your ass gotta work. You gotta motherfucking bring in some money. You ain't dating no broke motherfucker. That shit ain't gonna work. The last guy I dated from age 31 to 34. The one I met in New York when I moved to New York, he was former military. So, he had his things cut out for him. He was planning to buy a house with his military benefit thing. So, listen, I feel like singlehood isn't that bad because I get to get a lot of shit done, right? I successfully finished my PhD. I was going to do that anyway in a relationship, but it was just a lot of strain in that relationship, which made it a little difficult. It made it difficult to, focus, right? Because you got this going on. It's just like how people have kids, right? They got a husband or a wife in a program, and it's just like, I don't see how they did it, because that is stressful. It's too much shit to focus on. And I have to say this too when it comes to racial differences. When I look at my cohort of my colleagues who were in the same program, who started the PhD program with me, all women, shall I say. Men, it's funny how psychology was a male-dominated field, but now it's female-dominated. There were, I think, was it one or two men? Two men, I think, that started the program with us in 2016, but they dropped out. They didn't finish. It's like, something to be said about that. But I think total we had, 14 of us, and majority of them were married. They're white women, but they were married. And you look at like the few of us, it was only, I think, 3 of us that were black in the program. We're not married. So yeah, I think there are racial differences when it comes to the likelihood that a woman will be married, especially at this age, white versus black. White women do typically, they get married. Marriage is a whole nother thing, right? Now, you got people that marry for different reasons. They just want to say they married on paper, right? But marriage is a financial decision. It's a political decision. A lot of black people ain't ready for the financial part of it, just to be getting married on paper. Granted, getting married don't really cost that much. It's just like applying for a marriage license, right, and filling out the paperwork. But I think black people approach marriage differently than what other races, right? They don't see it as a necessity, right, as a part of like planning for the future. It's like financial planning for the future. A lot of black people don't really see it that way. And creating a sense of structure. It's just like marriage is like a default within the white community for a lot of people. It's just something you do, right? It's just tradition. Something you do to set up a structural system that is going to protect you, right? And protect the family. It's like it's kind of like by default, like I said. Whereas black people, they look at it like it's a bad thing. Oh, you don't want to get married, it's a burden. So that's weird. But both of my parents are obviously, my mom and my father, they were married before I came into the picture. So I definitely was raised in a household where I had that example set for me on what it looks like for, mother, father to be married. But yeah, I'm very like particular too. That's another thing. So I won't know if it's intelligence or if it's just wisdom, right? It depends on how you define intelligence. When they say intelligent women stay single longer, and this is not even respective of race, right? He's speaking about women in general, intelligent women in general, across the board. I think intelligence is factored into one's mate selection or preference, right? So Intelligence plays a role, but I think experience plays a bigger role. Just having common sense and experience, knowing what to look for, like knowing the red flags to look for. I talked about this before in another video about red flags. Go back and watch that video that I made on red flags. Where it just makes you more cautious in dating. And that cautiousness, it does end up canceling out motherfuckers. They probably measured up on certain factors, but then others you're like, hell no. Not going for it. Like I said, I met some interesting guys. But on that note, I'm about to end this video. Feel free to share your comments below. Maybe it's that time. It's coming up on that 5-year hiatus period is going to be in December this year. Kind of ending, right? That 5-year hiatus. Because like I said, between my first and second, it was 5 years. And you think about it, maybe it's that 5-year mark. I don't know. It's not something I think a lot about, though. I think about like just building a connection with the male energy, right? And seeing what it's like to procreate. And so I feel like that's it right there. That's probably why I would say is taking more long, because I'm more calculated. It's not that I'm just choosing a partner, someone to connect with. I'm choosing a mate, a person who I can mate with, I can have children with, I can raise a family with. So of course I gotta be selective, and I'm making this decision looking at a lot of different things. You know, do they have kids? What's their relationship with their kids? You know, are they deadbeat fathers? Do they respect the mother? Like, that matters. Because if you ain't got it right over there, what makes you think you're going to have it right over here? I'm not sitting up here creating no generational curses. I'm not feeding into that, right? You gotta break that cycle. Being a statistic, you know, having babies out of wedlock and single parent household. Hell no, right? You gotta use this. Right? Be careful, and that calls for choosing someone who is equally responsible as I am when it comes to sex, right? We all love sex. This is great. But yeah, knowing what can come out of the sex, a child, and, you know, making sure that I choose a partner who I'm compatible with, that, you know, I can be with, you know, for a long time. We can be with each other, you know, and we can have children together, and we can raise those children together responsibly. That goes into financial stability. And just being confident in oneself. Having worked through many of those demons that a person has carried from previous relationships, you know. All of this, right? So, yeah, you can see how that may weed out a lot of guys. Not that I'm completely opposed to a guy who has children, but unfortunately, given especially that my preference is black, because I'm pro-black, right? I want to date a man that's black. I want to procreate with a man who's black. When you look at the black dating pool of black men, they be fine now. Don't get me wrong. Some fine men up and now, physically attractive, but it takes more than that. A good number of them have kids. A good number of them actually don't have kids, though, right? So women assume, like, oh, by this age, you know, men gonna have kids. But it reminds me of a statement that my psychologist, who I was seeing out in California, made, that you gotta even be questioning. Because I brought this up too, right? I talked to my psychologist about this. And she was like, it could be even more concerning to come across a man who don't have kids. It actually could work in my favor to date a man who has kids, especially if he's a responsible father, right? He's taking care of his children, because he's already been down that road, right? He already been there, done that. So when it comes to doing it again, like, he got it down pat, right? Versus a man who hasn't, it's just like, okay, why you ain't got no kids? What's going on? You know, does it still work down there? You know, do you have issues with procreation, fertility issues? Like, all these kind of question marks start to pop up, right? It's unusual. Not to say that it can't happen in a man and be healthy physically, psychologically. You know, it's just like, boom, you just don't have kids, like myself, right? The universe just hasn't made it so that, you know, it's happened, right? So who knows? But that will be interesting, and I just want to be careful. I guess you can't be like, you can be trying to be as careful as you want to be, and it's still like things still go wrong, right? And I see that happening in women, where like they are good women, beautiful, and it's just like, damn, how you become a single fucking mama, baby mama? It's not the end of the world, no, but it's not ideal. I don't want that. So if I see like the slightest red flag in dating a guy, I'm thinking not just about myself, right, and building a connection with him as a partner, but I'm thinking about, okay, how would that play out? How would this behavior play out in terms of him being a good father? Do I see myself getting pregnant, letting him come up in me, and then I end up pregnant? Do I see that? Hell no. The shit they do, they're just not consistent, right, with communication. That's a big thing that a lot of women talk about. Consistency of communication, right? It's just like, so when you're inconsistent with communication, it just shows a pattern of behavior that reflects upon your ability to be trusted, right? Because we're talking about building something solid, getting to know a person, and you're not even consistent with that. But on that note, I'm going to end this video. No, I have not been single all my life. I actually been dating a guy, even living with a guy, I would say, longer than I've been single my adult life. So I do have a lot of experience in that department, and I'm happy. Like, that's what really matters, as long as a person is happy, and I'm faring well. Like I said, I think I've adapted very well to singlehood, so almost too well. Well, it makes it really difficult for men to persuade me to consider dating them, right, and sustaining a relationship. It's just like, that shit gotta outdo this euphoria, this peace that I've created for myself in being single. That's pretty hard to compete with, shall I say. Drop your comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you guys in the next one. I actually might be headed to Brooklyn today. Well, I am. I have an appointment set up where I'm going to be checking out this commercial space. So I probably will bring you guys with me. Not live, though. I may just do a pre-recorded video. And I'll be uploading it to my channel. So look out for that. I hope the space is nice. From the pictures, it look really nice. But you guys know I've already talked about a few ideas that I have in terms of this commercial space. So we can talk about that. But I'm going to catch you guys later. Happy Sunday. Drop your comments below.